In 5, 4, 3, 2, 2, 2.
Heyo, hi, hello, I'm Hippie Rats, and for the past year or so, my friend Quinton has been watching all of iCarly, Victorious, and Shazam and Cat in order to review them in comically lengthy and thorough analysis videos. The thoroughness of his analysis has gone so far as to include things like the short-form web content that served as extensions to the shows, the video game adaptations of the shows, and the merchandise based on the shows. This mini-series of reviews also includes some extensions to it in the form of a video of his that covered the entire history of the Fred Figglehorn franchise, a few upcoming videos on his channel relating back to this project, and a video on my channel covering the nigh-forgotten Nickelodeon action comedy TV show The Troop, which was teased in the Fred video. That's why it's in the playlist Stop Asking. Recently, while looking back on this whole project, I noticed a footnote in Fred's history that got acknowledged there, yet there had been no plans to cover a very similar footnote in the history of the Nickelodeon sitcoms. This was just after I had a conversation with Quinton about how he was a little bit disappointed about the fact that he was looking at sacrificing his streak of doing Knockoff November videos every year because of how much the iCarly project screwed up his schedule. And so I got to thinking, and I said, fuck it, Knockoff Knockoff November. Recently, the subscriber plugs have gotten increasingly lengthy in my videos, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet. We're gunning towards some subscriber goals: 10,000 and I do an Undertale video, 20,000 and I do a Tattletale video, 30,000 and I do a Telltale video. So do me a favor, subscribe to help us get there, and force me to make those videos. And also consider supporting me on Patreon so that these videos can become a little bit more self-sustaining. So in Quinton's Fred video, and also his B-movie video, which is separate, he covered sketches in Mad, the Cartoon Network animated adaptation of Mad Magazine. In the structure of Mad, they would use various different forms of animation throughout all their skits each episode, spoofing various aspects of pop culture in 2010, and opening and closing with lengthier segments dedicated to individual parodies. There's a lot you could say about Mad on its own. At times it proves to be charming and legitimately humorous. However, most of the time when I'm watching it, I find it to just be pretty dated and unfocused. The show came into being during the final death rattles of the movie genre. You know, those Friedberg and Seltzer spoof movies that were just a series of cameos of movie characters, except they would make a joke about testicles or something. Hot take, that's this whole show. Secondary hot take, that's also what Robot Chicken comes off as to me. Of course, I'm not the only person to say that Mad is basically Robot Chicken for kids. Is that foreshadowing? This makes the entire show itself a knockoff, but my focus for this video about knockoffs, which is a knockoff of Quinton's videos about knockoffs, is to look specifically at the times when it became an iCarly knockoff. Fuck! Back to those individual parody sketches. They usually were created by the writers combining two different properties and justifying the entire sketch with a pun on the two names. This kind of makes it so that most of the sketches they came up with, frankly, would have been better off as nothing more than Jeopardy clues, you know? A record producer signs on George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abe Lincoln to form a boy band. What? is Big Time Rushmore? A high-tech billionaire superhero searches for the perfect guy friend. What is I Love You, Iron Man? 3 teenage web stars lead a forensic investigation into a murder in Miami, Florida. What the fuck? Coincidentally, Mad's first foray into the horrible world of iCarly began in Season 1, Episode 1, Avatar/CSiCarly. The first sketch is essentially an extreme dumbing down of the plot of Avatar. It is about as memorable as the movie it is based on. But of course, the episode ends with a parody of CSI Miami, with a crossover from the iCarly gang we all know and love. Who the fuck was this made for? What grown-ass adult is watching CSI Miami and is tempted to turn on Cartoon Network because they're gonna do a spoof where their favorite gritty crime drama crosses over with a sitcom about some teen girls sticking blueberries up their noses for weirdos on the internet? Furthermore, what child looked at the episode info for this series premiere and said, "Oh boy, I love CSI Miami"? I got curious, so I looked it up, and it turns out that at the same time that this was released in 2010, Nickelodeon was premiering the Mega Music Fest, a television special where the entire preschool lineup of programs on the network teamed up with, I swear to God, John Leguizamo to sing songs and find his fucking shoes. I feel self-conscious about this video, because I struggle to come up with any jokes that actually transcend the comedy of just explaining what exactly happened, and hoping you understand that this is fucking weird. But anyway, great night for television if you're younger than 5 or older than 55. So Horatio Kane, Callie Duquesne, and Walter Simmons arrive at a TGI Fridays because some guy fucking died. Headquarters decide they need to, quote, inject new blood into a tired old fossil, so they send Carly, Sam, and Freddy to help them investigate. This confuses the CSI Miami team, but they just kinda go along with it. Finally, the iCarly team solve the case. The man died because he was really, really old. Now, when Quinton covered iCarly, you may remember that proportionately little of the analysis actually covered the in-fiction web show iCarly, and that's largely because proportionately little of the television show actually covered the in-fiction web show iCarly. But when it comes to adapting iCarly for the purpose of parody, the first step usually comes down to determining what sets iCarly apart from contemporary sitcoms, and the conclusion you're bound to come to is the gimmick in the premise of the show. So, most parodies of iCarly usually heavily involve the web show aspect, since iCarly is about a group of teenagers who make a comedy web show, even though it's not really about a group of teenagers who make a comedy web show. My point being that CSiCarly is clearly focused heavily on spoofing iCarly for its web show aspect. Carly and Sam are both kind of individually devoid of character, except for the generic web show host personas that they turn on in-universe, and of course the sketch has plenty of focus on the fact that they are actively performing for the camera that Freddy points at them. One moment that felt a little extra notable was that while Carly was addressing the CSI team, Sam can be seen in the background lightly tapping silverware against a plate. I genuinely cannot tell if this is supposed to be a joke about the lame improvised stuff the web show would use as subterfuge during in-show drama, or a joke about just how generally distractible these characters are, but it kinda works either way. At one point, the CSI team decide to put the cadaver into a body bag, but the iCarly gang, still playing it up for the web show, propose to instead put him in a noodle net. This is my favorite part of the sketch because I'm pretty sure that the noodle net bit is invented for Mad, and it's always really cool to see shows like this spoof something and invent concepts that you would genuinely imagine having shown up in the original piece. Like, yeah, noodle net. Those bitches would. Anyway, the iCarly gang desecrate a human corpse in an active crime scene and livestream it to millions of concurrent viewers, many of whom are children. While researching, I don't think they technically did anything illegal, since they're part of the investigative force on this guy's death, and apparently you can show whatever the fuck you want to kids as long as it's within that website's terms of service. If anything, they might get caught up in a journalistic conflict of interest scandal, but for the fuck of it, I'm counting it as iCrimes number 71 and 72. The next iCarly parody comes in Season 1, Episode 7, Cliffordfield / Big Time Rushmore. Now, I know what you're thinking, and no, they are not in the parody of the Nickelodeon sitcom. They're in the other one. Cliffordfield opens with a text crawl explaining that this is, in fact, a parody of the found footage horror film Cloverfield, but if you haven't seen it, who gives a shit? It's not like this skit is going to be good either way. So Zach and Cody are having it. Yes, that Zach and Cody. No, they have nothing to do with Cloverfield, nor Clifford the Big Red Dog. This is just what we're doing. So Zach and Cody are having a surprise party with several other Disney Channel sitcom characters, and also the iCarly gang. I beg of you, please turn your fucking brain off. It's worth noting that Carly, Sam, and Freddie really are only here because there needed to be some reason for someone to be holding a camera, and that's the only aspect of the characters being spoofed. Also, Kermit the Frog is there and is annoyed because he suspects Freddie of taping over his American Idol audition, which we see is the case when the video glitches out. I have had dreams that stay focused better than this. In the background, Clifford the Big Red Dog can be seen growing really big, but like even bigger than normal, as a result of nuclear waste or something. I don't know. Chaos ensues. The Sesame Street cast are there, and Big Bird gets squished into SpongeBob SquarePants shape. Clifford throws a tennis ball that people think crushed Hannah Montana to death since her wig can be seen, and Miley Cyrus is devastated. Yeah, that aged well. Zach gets crushed to death by rubble, and Cody celebrates becoming the more popular twin. Yeah, that aged well. A bunch of giant fleas fall off of Clifford and maul Carly and Sam to death. Finally, they decide to put a picture of a fire hydrant on the Statue of Liberty to get Clifford away from the city, and Freddie begins narrating to the camera about what has happened in case he doesn't make it, and the footage is recovered. Then it glitches out and shows more of Kermit's American Idol audition, and then it just kinda ends. I feel like "and then it just kinda ends" is an apt way to explain the plot of any Mad segment. Like, hey, how do we end this skit? I don't know. Mad really comes off like a kid playing with dolls half the time. I mean, where else can you get a story about a bunch of literal children being killed in surprisingly gruesome ways for a laugh, especially when half of those kids are being treated very poorly behind the scenes of the shows they star on already? Like, maybe it's just the hindsight, but it feels so unnecessarily bitter. Either that, or there's just little to no thought put into this show where an edit of a mortally injured young Jeanette McCurdy is shown less than a minute after they had their spoof of Demi Lovato fart loudly. Not only all this, but the inclusion of iCarly in a scene populated otherwise by Disney sitcoms just makes me think that the people working on the show hadn't the slightest clue about Nickelodeon and what programs were even on that network. Anyway, the next parody we'll be looking at was made by the creator of El Tigre. Directed by Jorge R. Gutierrez, this short segment in the middle of Season 1, Episode 16, The Straight A-Team / Gaming's Next Top Princess, is called Presented as a Spanish-language teaser for an upcoming episode of the show, an announcer describes an A-plot where Carly and Sam get jobs as matadors, being either killed or horribly injured enough for Freddie to have to perform the show himself, pantomiming as the two Gurfs, only for him to quickly have a mental breakdown. In the B-plot, Spencer takes a bath in soup. Well, they got Spencer spot on, you could say that for certain. To round out season 1 of Mad, iCarly is briefly referenced in a segment called Seattle, Los Angeles, in episode 25, Ribbitless/The Clawfist. This segment is a movie trailer parody about a mysterious event in which the literal city of Seattle, Washington, invades the literal city of Los Angeles, California. Miranda Cosgrove shows up for the Kids' Choice Awards, only for a random passerby to mistake her for her character in iCarly, Carly Shay, a citizen of Seattle. They slime her. Don't know why. While we're on the topic of small cameos and sketches that are otherwise not about iCarly, there is one more example of this before we could put our focus back on sketches about iCarly. In Season 3's Dark Night at the Museum, Commissioner Gordon tells Batman that the Riddler is set to strike the Museum of Television that night. When scoping the place out later, all of the exhibits come to life, at first frightening Batman before joining forces with him to defeat the Riddler. This includes Big Bird, SpongeBob SquarePants, Demi Lovato, and goddamn, they really like to dip their quill in the same few wells on this show, huh? The Riddler contacts Batman through a tablet to taunt him.
Hello, Batman. Riddler here.
Plus Carly and Sam from iCarly.
Oh man, this is every time. If there is a camera that is physically present in this show, the cast of iCarly will show up. Never fails. The Riddler does the fish with no eyes joke, you know, the fish one, and Freddy turns the camera toward Carly and Sam to show them trying to understand it.
Freddy, so help me. If you don't keep the camera on me, I will shove it up your...
Anyway, stuff happens, the television characters kill the Riddler, Batman blows up the museum, and then it just kind of ends. So remember when they did a parody of a found footage movie and they had Freddy holding the camera? Yeah, let's do that again. It's iChronicle, a crossover parody of iCarly and Chronicle. Bringing it into Season 2, Episode 26, this short begins with Freddy getting confused between Carly and a bowl of plain yogurt. Spencer arrives and shows them a hole in the ground where they find a big rock that gives everyone, except Carly, superpowers. Carly insists that the rock did give her the superpower of better acting, but this just elicits cricket noises and chiding from the others, and Jesus Christ, what a bitter sketch. The hole caves in when Carly kicks a support beam in frustration, and Spencer fucking dies. While Sam and Freddy enjoy their superpowers, Carly goes insane and decides to broadcast her acting talent to the entire world, so she takes a recording of herself and begins climbing the Space Needle. Whatever. Freddy threatens to impale Carly with the tip of the Space Needle, but he can't bring himself to do it, so Sam crashes a Nickelodeon blimp into Carly instead. Near the wreckage, a fan laments about how Carly went crazy, only for her to reveal that she was simply acting crazy, and she is a good actor after all. The fan goes to ask for her autograph, only for the bowl of plain yogurt to be mistaken for her again. I don't know, man. She's a kid. Like, is there any punching up being done when you're just insulting a teenage girl's acting? So we have one last full-on iCarly spoof from Mad to look at. Season 3, Episode 6's iCharlie. This time, the cast of iCarly don't actually show up, and instead characters from a different intellectual property are placed into their scenarios rather than the other way around. So Lucy is offering to hold the football for Charlie Brown to kick, your classic Peanuts gag. But Charlie is wary because Lucy will probably pull the ball away. Lucy has Linus film this to hold her accountable, allowing Charlie to trust her, but she still pulls the ball away at the last minute, and Charlie falls down and hurts himself. They upload the video online, and it quickly gains more than 1 million views, embarrassing Charlie until Linus and Lucy convince him that he's now internet famous and people love him. He agrees to turn this into a regular web show, iCharlie, where he recreates famous viral videos of people hurting themselves, injuring himself over and over for internet fame. Finally, after several weeks of this, Charlie has become an entitled star in spite of his injuries, snapping at Lucy and Linus over every slight setback to the show. While adjusting the lighting, Linus accidentally knocks over the camera, and Charlie Brown kicks him off the set in a parody of the infamous Christian Bale meltdown.
I was looking at the light, Charlie Brown.
Oh, good for you!
I was looking at the light.
Oh, good for you!
Later, Charlie and Lucy lament on the suspension of iCharlie after Linus took his camera with him upon being kicked off the set. They released the footage of Charlie Brown's rant as their final video, but this only serves to make the internet hate Charlie Brown. Less a parody of iCarly itself and more just a parody of YouTube in general. I decided to read the wiki page on this segment on the Mad Wiki, and I found this absolutely delightful piece of trivia, and I'm going to read it verbatim. The segment is very similar to Aberzombie and Stitch, The Fast and the Curious, Smallville, Turn Off the Clark, The Clawfus, What's in a Name, The Curious Case of Benjamin Batman, The Walking Fred, The Scooby-Doo Gang Ruining Halloween since 1969, My Supernatural Sweet 16, Victorious, That's What Super Friends Are For, Hulk Smash, Franklin and Crash, and Modern Family Circus. That's it. That's all they say. They think that all of these segments, including iCharlie, hold some innate similarity that's not even worth clarifying. You know it when you see it. Hey, you know what this Mad segment reminds me of? This completely unrelated Mad segment. I've seen some of these and is it just the animation style? Is that it? Because plot, characters, vibe, structure, all of these feel completely Yep. Yeah, no, I'm processing it now. Yeah. So Tori, Jade, and Andre are hanging out together when oh god, there's the fucking puppet! Robbie lets the three of them in on the fact that today Hollywood Arts is hosting the National Yodeling Mime Competition, where the winner gets a contract with the National Yodeling Mime Company. Tori is confident that she'll win the contract, but Andre tells her that she has stiff competition since there's a new exchange student from Latveria. That's right, the new student at Hollywood Arts is Victor Von Doom. What the fuck is happening to these background characters? Victorious. Get it? Tori, Jade, and Andre leave to prepare for the competition, but before Robbie could follow them, Victor stops him, calling him Andy Samberg, which made sense at the time. Robbie tells Victor about the philosophy of the founder of Hollywood Arts, Angelina Jolie. If you're famous, you can rule the world. This entices Victor, who asks Robbie for help in the competition. Robbie agrees since he wasn't going to enter the competition anyway on account of his inability to mime and Rex's inability to yodel. Victor Von Doom is startled when Rex starts talking and oh fuck! Sorry, I know that Rex is kinda racist and we've all agreed that we're not fond of him, but I'm just so used to him being a cast member that I'm just shocked that they show him in this state. While Tori, Jade, and Andre prepare for the competition, Andre realizes that since mimes are silent, the concept of a yodeling mime makes no sense, and Jade smacks the fuck out of him. Robbie configures Doom's suit to be able to put on the perfect yodeling mime performance. At the competition, we see Tori's performance. She's yodeling and doing mime stuff. What else could you possibly want? Mr. Sikowitz then introduces the final contestant, Victor Von Doom, who activates his suit only for it to malfunction, speeding up way too fast and ultimately exploding. Robbie goes to tend to Victor, who regretfully admits to Robbie that he's no villainous mastermind, just a fool who dreamed too big. It's then that Robbie reveals that he actually is Andy Samberg. It made sense at the time, and he brings Victor Von Doom and Justin Timberlake with him to Disneyland, where Doom punches Mickey Mouse in the face. I forgot what we were doing. I'm adding Angelina Jolie founded Hollywood Arts to the list. Fuck you. This sketch actually has a direct sequel, and we'll get to that in a bit, but first I want to backtrack and cover the smaller appearances of Victorious. In Extreme Renovation House Edition, Ty Pennington is called by Lex Luthor, Sinestro, and the Joker to renovate Superman's Fortress of Solitude. Ty tells Superman that someone at Disneyland needs rescuing, and he renovates the house while he's gone, much to Superman's chagrin. The crystals with the messages from his father have now been replaced with an HD TV.
That Demi Lovato sure looks good in HD, huh?
Hey, there's a fifth. Okay, bye. The resting chamber that harnessed the power of the sun has now been replaced with bunk beds that Superman shares with Zack from Zack and Cody, and Ty somehow managed to unlock the Phantom Zone. General Zod arrives, telling Superman to shut up, he's watching Victorious. Hey, we got there. Superman fights Zod, and Lex Luthor, Sinestro, and the Joker get caught up in the scuffle. The segment ends with a teaser for the next episode, where they hit Dr. House with a fucking wrecking ball. Then there's uGlee, a Glee parody. In it, the principal has to shut down the Glee Club because they're out of funding. This guy decides that in order to save the Glee Club, he'll get everyone to watch the show by doubling down on the very simple premise: singing in high school. What follows is a musical number where they embrace the lack of substance in the show for the gimmick that has done wonders for High School Musical, The Jonas Brothers, Hannah Montana, the movie Fame, and, you guessed it, Victorious. Once that's over, he asks the principal if the Glee Club can stay, but the principal isn't sure because there wasn't enough money in the budget for an ending. So that brings us to the last Victorious parody. Here Comes the Doom. Tori and Andy Samberg are excited for the art show competition, which is bound to go better than the previous year's yodeling mime competition. Holy shit, actual continuity. Victor Von Doom appears to revel in the fact that this time it is he who will be victorious, get it? Suddenly, Henry Winkler appears to tell them that unfortunately, there won't be an art show. As revealed in a school board meeting, a budget cut of $48,000 has caused them to have to remove all extracurriculars, which is wild since Hollywood Arts is only extracurriculars. Kevin James offers to raise the money himself, but Doom knocks him out and decides to raise the money Doomself. You get it? It's Here Comes the Boom, a movie that I didn't watch. After seeing a promo for the mixed martial arts $48,000 weekly match, Doom gets the bright idea to sell a watch for $48,000. Sure. Henry Winkler convinces Doom to try the MMA weekly match, coaching him as he trains. At first, Doom zaps the two beefy dudes he's training against, fucking murdering them, but Henry Winkler tells him that he can't use power armor in the fight. Back at the school, we learn that they now have had to cut English and history from the curriculum, and as a prospective English teacher, this is literally 1984. At the fight, Doom gets his ass kicked, losing the match. However, the loser of the $48,000 weekly match actually gets paid out $49,000, so Doom saves the school. We cut to the art show competition, which Doom loses to some random kid, and he begins destroying the school in a rage. Remember when this was a Victorious parody? Neither do I. Fuck it, there's a Sam and Cat one, and you're gonna hate it. So Sam drives her motorcycle through the wall of Cat's home, and Cat starts talking about how excited she is to actually be living with Sam from iCarly, fainting when she can't breathe due to her rapid and airy speaking voice. Dice shows up and tells Sam and Cat that he found a kid for them to babysit. It's Billy Batson, the kid who transforms into Shazam. You get it? It's Shazam and Cat. I'm so frustrated. During the title card, Sam literally murders Dice to steal his money so she could go to watch a movie. We are ambivalent to this. Dr. Savannah shows up and starts stealing the city's power, so Billy turns into Shazam to fight him off. Sam and Cat follow since they're supposed to be babysitting him. Cat is surprised to see that he's turned into Shazam, and when Shazam corrects her pronunciation, he turns back into Billy. This allows Dr. Savannah to escape, and he makes it to a satellite across town. Billy turns back into Shazam and confronts him, but Dr. Savannah pranks him into turning back into Billy. Sam and Cat arrive on Sam's motorcycle, and she burns rubber on the motherfucker's face, Jesus Christ. After defeating him, Dr. Savannah reveals that he wasn't actually going through with an evil plan, rather a heroic plan. He wanted to destroy this satellite in order to prevent the production of any more bad television shows from the evil creator of Drake and Josh, Zoe 101, iCarly, Victorious, and Sam and Cat. None other than Later, Charlie and Lucy lament on the suspension of iCharlie after Linus took his camera with him upon being kicked off the set. They released the footage of Charlie Brown's rant as their final video, but this only serves to make the internet hate Charlie Brown. Oh, why do I feel so fucking sick? Let's watch literally anything else. Oh, you're fucking kidding. So in 2013, Robot Chicken had an iCarly spoof in the episode Caffeine-Induced Aneurysm. It's probably worth noting that iCarly had ended in 2012, so, you know, topical. In this, Carly is in the restroom where she films an impromptu promo for Duck Week, an event where they'll be doing duck-themed content a la Shark Week on their web show. Once she finishes recording, it's time for her to get ready for school, and oh my fucking god, what the actual fuck? At school, Carly gives Gibby the footage of the Duck Week promo, which Freddy told him he can take care of. They literally only do this so that they have a reason for Gibby to be in the skit, so they could body shame him. Carly is completely unaware that the camera was still on, accidentally filming her in the shower, and when Gibby is reviewing the footage later, oh my fucking god, what the actual fuck? In the Naval, Air Force, Marine Army, we see Colonel Shay tuning in to watch the latest post to iCarly, shocked to see the unedited footage of his teenage daughter having been uploaded. He decides to resign from his position as colonel in shame, but he's told that if he does, he'll be court-martialed. So he decides to do something that's worth being court-martialed over. They chart a course to the Arabian Sea, and oh my fucking god! What the actual fuck? Spencer comes to the conclusion that Al-Qaeda strike teams will seek revenge on the Shays until they're dead, and Carly is humiliated by the video posted online, so they decide to go off the grid, and then it just kinda ends. I think it's kind of funny. Not this, but the fact that the TV show iCarly is pretty infamous now for having been notoriously bad at really capturing the essence of what made online content in its time work. And yet, when it comes to television shows trying to parody iCarly, they are notoriously bad at really capturing the essence of what made the TV show iCarly work. As I touched on earlier, the first step for pretty much every iCarly parody was to establish a focus on the web show angle, since that's what set it apart from the other sitcoms. But that's unfortunately kind of a flawed way to tackle a good spoof, because so much of what we identify with iCarly are elements outside of the web show aspect. I mean, have you noticed that this is the first time I've mentioned Tebow in the entire video? When you think of iCarly, so many iconic moments, episodes, characters, and themes are completely separate from the web show, and in order to properly parody them, you can't confine yourself with the simplicities of these are two girls who stand in front of a camera and say non sequiturs. And so, if television programs fail to parody a television program that fails to parody internet content, how does internet content stack up to parodying that television program? I want to wrap this up soon, so I'll only look at a couple videos, but one clear example of a solid iCarly parody is every episode of iCarly by Anthpo. This video is purposefully structured with low-effort green screen effects and a stilted, monotone style of speaking. But enough about me. Carly and Sam introduce the web show, but it's abruptly halted because Freddy's getting a call from his mom, which enrages Sam and causes her to start beating him up. Gibby heads upstairs while making spaghetti tacos with Spencer, wanting to get away from the heat caused by all the fire. Cut to Spencer reacting to the fire he started. While Sam is beating up Freddy, we're reminded that this is TVPG, which is a really nice touch, and Freddy randomly confesses his love for Sam, and Sam confesses the same. This part of the show made absolutely zero sense. Freddy shipper head ass. They return to the web show to do some random dancing. Gibby and Spencer decide to head to the Groovy Smoothie, and hey, it's Tebow. I wasn't expecting him to be in this skit.
Hey, it's me, Tebow. Bet you didn't expect me to be in this skit.
I wasn't. Tebow mixes up Spencer's order of 2 smoothies and instead gets him 4 marshmallows on a stick. Anthony then dedicates the video to Jerry Trainer, which, don't we all? Immediately, this is such a breath of fresh air. The fast-paced and nonchalant tone feels much less babying and condescending than a lot of the clips on Mad and even Robot Chicken that I watched. It feels much more casual, like I'm shooting the shit with a friend about the running gags and iconic plot lines on this show we both watched. And I think that's an important thing to note. I actually walk away from this feeling like the guy who made this spoof of iCarly has actually fucking seen iCarly, which isn't always the impression I get from the television spoofs. I know a lot of what I'm breaking down isn't really specific to this video and is generally just what makes casual internet content easier to digest for certain viewers when compared to television content that tries to do something similar but with a much higher production. But I think when we're talking about parodies of television content with a much higher production that is literally about the creation of casual internet content, I think it's important to point out that distinction. Like, it really is fascinating when you think about it. If it weren't for Nickelodeon buying into the concept of internet content as a respectable creative media platform so early, I think a lot of people my age would not have been enticed by the prospect of becoming internet creators quite as much as we were, and to thus see the direct result of that influence be turned around to poke playful and/or critical jabs at the pieces that inspired us, as well as compete with that influencer's peers and how well they've managed to perform those jabs. It's honestly pretty cool. I'd call it full circle, but I have one last skit I want to look at that I think truly takes the cake in terms of full circle-ality. In Quinton's video, he points out that a lot of the web show content in iCarly seemed directly inspired by the early works of Smosh, the YouTube comedy channel created by Anthony Padilla and Ian Hecox, or Hecox. I never learned how to pronounce it. Over the years, Smosh has evolved to become a multimedia content conglomerate that doesn't just focus on scripted comedy skits anymore, bringing on a large cast of comedians and saying goodbye to Anthony. And so while Smosh clearly had an impact on iCarly's concept of what internet content was like, it no longer accurately captures what Smosh itself is strictly like at this point. And perhaps it would be fair to say that iCarly also had some influence on where Smosh's content has eventually become. So when Smosh created an iCarly parody earlier this year, it really felt like it accidentally captured this weird nostalgic loop that perfectly mixes modern internet humor with the kind of tone you'd see from something in 2009, but in a pretty good way. Every Nick show ever opens with a return from commercial back to the sitcom I'm Barley. Barley explains to Cannoli that they can't film the web show after school because they have detention after Zoe built a pipe bomb and used it to blow up the principal's office. Zoe beats up Cannoli, and Barley complains that fighting won't get them dates to homecoming. Cannoli suggests she could go out with Landsberg, but Barley doesn't want to because he speaks through his puppet. Holy shit, they chose a puppet that's offensive in a completely different way. Cannoli then suggests she ask out Gibby, but Barley is once again put off because he likes to scream his own name and take his shirt off. And then Shane Top shows up.
Carly Shay? From iCarly, right?
They cut to commercial again, and then Shane Top shows up. It's a teaser for an upcoming episode of Dancer at Singer School, where he plays take a wild fucking guess, and a ditzy red-haired girl named Penny drinks bubble soap.
Try singing along to this.
We cut back from commercial, where Barley is laughing about her entire house burning down the previous night. Barley and Zoe then start drooling over a hunky foreign exchange student named Truck, but just before he can ask Barley out, Barley's step-cousin and legal guardian Bazgo falls from the ceiling. Fun fact about this shot, Bazgo's stunt performer actually broke his trachea on this fall because the producers didn't properly set up a crash pad for him. And in the pickup shots later, they have Bazgo make a joke about this exact injury.
Oh, my trachea!
They're surprised to see him since he's not legally allowed to be within 50 feet of a middle school, but he explains that he's been living in the vents for 3 days because he befriended a pigeon named Gerald and has been playing Dungeons and Dragons with it. Not every Spencer parody is going to be a winner. Bazgo then shows Barley a viral edit of her web show where it appears as though she says that she eats salad with her feet. A popular girl then steals Truck away, since who wants to date someone who eats salad with their feet? And Barley screams in anguish. Bazgo goes off to meet back up with Gerald, and Barley reveals that Gerald isn't real. It's a voice in his head, because he's mentally unwell and endangers Barley all the time. Hey, Barley, he's been in the air vents of this school for the past 3 days. Who the fuck should I blame the previous night's fire on? You know, for a video called Every Nick Show Ever, there's a concerning lack of references to the troop. I'll take what I can get. I'm actually really excited about seeing Shane Top in this specific video. Not because he was in an episode of iCarly that one time, but because he played Steve, the giant cookie, the hero who bravely helped protect Fred's cake from the expired cow.
I'm gonna get that cake, Fred.
We get one more commercial, this one for a toy called Fardass, before we return to I'm a Barley, where posters of Barley eating salad with her feet have been put up all around the school. Finally, they determine the perpetrator is the mean teacher, Mrs. Klipsky, who's vindictive towards Barley because Bazgo won't reciprocate her feelings for him. Suddenly, Landsberg arrives and announces that he has 3 rows of teeth and that his puppet, Mr. Onions, is physically attracted to bugs and human beings. Truck arrives and backs Barley up as well with his own dark secret, which is some vaguely Scandinavian-sounding nonsense. Gibby arrives to also explain his personal oddities, which is still just shouting his name out loud and taking his shirt off because even the mere act of joking about Gibby's Flanderization has become in and of itself Flanderized. Bazgo falls from the ceiling again to cheer for Barley because everyone's quirks make them different, and that's cool, or whatever. Suddenly, Barley realizes that Zoe is probably beating up Cannoli somewhere again, only for Bazgo to find them making out in a locker.
Zoe? Cannoli? Kissing? You guys hate each other!
Yeah. We do. That makes it even hotter.
Mrs. Klipsky runs away defeated. Landsberg asks out Barley. She turns him down, and then Barley suggests they all go to the dance together as friends. Basgo then runs off to the sewers to play Settlers of Catan with the rats. It's a little goofy, but hey, it's knocking off a goofy thing. Let's just have fun and enjoy it. It's the least you can grant us after wading through so many genuine Nickelodeon sitcoms. Of course, if you haven't already, go watch the entirety of the iCarly saga for the 75th time. It's like the only internet content worth giving shit about these days. And that includes the Troop video. Yeah, if you daft bastards haven't been watching the Troop video, then I swear to God, I am going to get that cake, Fred. Make sure to like and subscribe, give that bell a ring like a bride, go to my Patreon, throw me a dime, and most importantly, love yourself, and good night.
2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2